I always thought my life would start the day I stepped onto a college campus. Ever since I was little, I pictured myself walking through big lecture halls, carrying a backpack stuffed with books, feeling like I finally belonged somewhere. That dream kept me going through everything long nights of studying, part-time shifts after school, even when my parents barely noticed the effort I put in. College was my escape. My ticket to a future that felt like it was mine. I wasn't born with much. We weren't poor, but my parents made it clear that their money wasn't really for me. I started saving on my own when I was 14. Babysitting, tutoring kids down the street, working weekends at the diner, whatever I could find. I did it. Every dollar I made, I tucked away, watching it grow little by little. By the time I turned 17, I had over $50,000 saved between scholarships, my savings account, and the small jobs I worked. That money wasn't just numbers in a bank account. It was proof that I wasn't lazy, but I could build my own future, even if no one else believed in me. But the hardest part was how invisible I felt at home. My parents had my older sister, Rebecca, on a pedestal. To them, she was perfect. Straight A's, beautiful, the golden child who could do no wrong. Every family dinner turned into a celebration of her achievements, while my own dreams were brushed aside. If I ever tried to talk about college, my dad would wave his hand and say, "That's nice, Haley, but don't get your hopes too high." My mom would smile politely, but I could tell she didn't think I could handle it. I tried not to let their words get to me, but they did. There were nights I cried quietly in my room, wondering why my best was never enough for them. Still, I kept pushing. I told myself that the moment I left for college, I finally proved them wrong. I'd finally show them that I was capable of more than they ever gave me credit for. Rebecca would laugh whenever I mentioned it. "College isn't for everyone," she'd say, smirking like she already knew I'd fail. "Don't stress yourself too much, Haley. You don't want to embarrass yourself." Those words stung, but they also lit a fire in me. I promised myself that one day, she'd see. They all would. I remember lying awake one night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how close I was. Applications were almost ready, my savings were solid, and for the first time in my life, I felt like everything I'd worked for was finally coming together. My chest swelled with this mix of excitement and fear. Excitement that my dream was almost real, and fear that maybe, just maybe, something would come along and ruin it. And as it turned out, that fear wasn't just in my head. It was a warning of what was about to happen. Growing up, I always knew where I stood in my family. And it wasn't in the spotlight. That place was reserved for my older sister, Rebecca. She was the daughter my parents bragged about to their friends, the one whose trophies lined the shelves in the living room, the one who could do no wrong no matter what. Me? I was just there. Whenever report cards came out, Rebecca's straight A's were celebrated with cake and family dinners. Mine, even when they were good, were brushed off. If I got an A, my mom would nod and say, "That's nice, Haley," and then turn right back to talking about Rebecca's debate team or her scholarship offers. It felt like no matter how hard I tried, I was always standing in her shadow. Invisible and unheard. My dad loved to brag about Rebecca's potential. He'd tell everyone she was destined for greatness. When it came to me, he didn't really have much to say. If I mentioned my own plans like wanting to study business or design, he'd chuckle and say, "Let's see if you can handle community college first." It was like he'd already decided I wasn't capable of more. The part that hurt the most wasn't just being ignored, but the way they made me feel small without even realizing it. Rebecca would tease me all the time, throwing little jabs that she knew would stick. "You're such a dreamer, Haley," she'd laugh, flipping her perfect hair over her shoulder. "Not everyone is meant for big things." My mom would never stop her. She'd just smile like Rebecca was being cute while I sat there swallowing my pride. I can still remember one dinner where I tried to talk about a scholarship I won for my grades and part-time job. I was so proud. I had worked myself to the bone to get that recognition. But before I could even finish explaining, Rebecca cut in with news about her latest internship, and instantly all the attention shifted to her. My dad raised his glass and toasted to Rebecca's bright future while I sat there, my words hanging in the air, completely forgotten. It was like that all the time. Rebecca's life was the main story, and mine was just background noise. I learned to stop expecting praise, to stop hoping they'd see me the way I wanted them to. But deep down, it still hurt. It felt like no matter how much I gave, I would never be enough for them, and yet that's what kept me going. Every dismissal, every time they overlooked me, it built up inside like fuel. I kept telling myself, one day they'll see. One day I'll prove them wrong. That dream of college wasn't just about me anymore. It was about showing them that I wasn't some useless backup character in Rebecca's perfect little story. I wanted to show them I had a story of my own. I still remember the exact moment everything came crashing down. It was a random Thursday afternoon. I had just come home from school, dropped my bag on the floor, and decided to check my bank account like I always did. It was a little habit of mine, a way to remind myself that my dream was real, that I was getting closer every day. But that day, my heart stopped. The balance that used to show over $50,000 now showed a number so low it made my stomach twist. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. Maybe the app glitched or the bank messed up. I refreshed the screen over and over, but the number didn't change. My money was gone. I ran downstairs, my hands shaking, and found my mom in the kitchen. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling, "do you know what happened to my college fund? The money's missing." She didn't even look surprised. She just set down her coffee and sighed, like she had been expecting this conversation. "Haley," she said softly, "your father and I used it." I froze. "You what?" "We used the money," she repeated, this time firmer. "For Rebecca's wedding. It was the right thing to do. Family comes first." My chest tightened and I could feel my eyes burning. That was my money. I worked for that. I earned scholarships. I saved every dollar. That was for my future. My dad walked in then, carrying groceries, and he caught the end of what I said. He didn't even look guilty. He just shrugged. "You'll have other chances, Haley. But your sister's wedding is once in a lifetime. She deserves it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, had stolen everything I worked for and handed it over like it meant nothing. Rebecca walked in a few minutes later, glowing from some dress fitting. And when she heard what we were talking about, she smirked. "Oh, come on, Haley. Don't be so dramatic. You'll survive without college for a while." My wedding was way more important. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But I just stood there, shaking, my words catching in my throat. "Do you even realize what you've done to me? You've destroyed everything I've worked for." My mom's voice softened like she was trying to calm a child. "Honey, you'll understand when you're older. Right now, Rebecca needed it more than you. We had to make a choice." And just like that, they went on with their evening like they hadn't just shattered my entire future. I went upstairs and closed my door, tears streaming down my face. For the first time in years, my dream felt impossible. But beneath all the heartbreak, something else was starting to rise. Anger. Cold, sharp anger. And I knew I wasn't going to let this be the end of my story. For days after I found out, I couldn't even look at my parents. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. All those nights I stayed up working, all those weekends I gave up to save for my future, it was gone. They had stolen it. At first, I wanted to just curl up and give up. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. And that anger turned into something else. Determination. If they thought they could ruin my future and get away with it, they didn't know me all. One night, I sat at my desk staring at my laptop. I typed in search after search, ways to make money online, starting a business as a teen, how to build passive income. At first, it felt overwhelming. I didn't know where to start. But I remembered something my teacher once told me. If you can solve a problem for people, you can make money. So I started small. I had always been good at design sketching, creating things on my tablets, So I decided to try selling custom designs online. T-shirts, phone cases, digital prints, things people could actually use. The first week, nothing happened. I listed products, refreshed my page 100 times, and saw nothing but silence. But I refused to give up. I tweaked my designs, made better ads, stayed up way past midnight teaching myself how to market on social media. Slowly, orders started to trickle in. $5 here, $10 there. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every notification of a sale felt like proof that I could fight back. Then something clicked. One of my designs went viral on social media. Suddenly, instead of a few orders a week, I was getting dozens every day. I barely had time to keep up, but I didn't care. I worked harder than ever. My room turned into a little office. While my parents thought I was sulking in bed, I was actually building something bigger than they could ever imagine. Months passed, and the numbers kept growing. I watched my account balance rise higher and higher until one morning I sat staring at the screen in shock. Over $100,000. I had doubled the money they stole from me. Not with their help, not with their approval, but with my own hands. And the best part? They didn't have a clue. At dinner, my parents still looked at me like I was the failure of the family, the one who needed guidance. Rebecca still smirked whenever I mentioned college, acting like I was too small to dream big. But inside, I was smiling. Because I knew the truth. I knew that I wasn't the helpless little girl they thought I was. I wasn't just going to take back what they stole. I was going to make them regret ever underestimating me. And when the time was right, I was going to show them exactly who they were dealing with. The night everything came to a head was during one of our usual family dinners. Rebecca and her new husband had just come back from their honeymoon, and of course, the evening was all about them. My mom had cooked this huge meal, and everyone was gathered around the table, laughing, telling stories, while I sat there quietly, picking at my food. Rebecca was glowing, talking about the private villa they stayed in, the fancy dinners, the ocean view. It was honestly magical, she said, flashing her diamond ring like it was the sun itself. My parents hung on every word, their faces lit up with pride. My dad raised his glass and said, "You deserve every bit of it, sweetheart. We're so proud of you." I felt invisible like always, but this time it didn't sting the way it used to. This time I was waiting. At some point, my mom turned to me almost as an afterthought. "Haley, your sister and Mark are looking into buying a house. Things are tight with all the wedding expenses. Maybe you could help out a little." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. "Help out?" I repeated, my voice sharper than I intended. "Yes," she said gently, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "You're still living at home. You don't have many expenses. It would mean so much to the family if you could contribute." Rebecca smirked across the table. "Don't tell me you're still upset about the college money," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "That was months ago, Haley. Move on. Be useful for once." My blood boiled, but instead of snapping, I smiled. Calm, controlled. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. With a few taps, I opened my business account and slid it across the table toward my dad. The screen glowed with the balance over $100,000. The room went silent. My dad's jaw dropped, my mom's eyes went wide, and even Rebecca's smug grin faded. Where did this come from?" My mom whispered, "My business," I said simply. "The one I built while you were busy spending my future on Rebecca's fairy tale wedding." They stared at me like they didn't recognize me. My dad cleared his throat, suddenly softening his tone. "Haley, sweetheart." "That's incredible. We're so proud of you." My mom leaned forward, her voice almost desperate. "Maybe you could help us with some of the bills, just until things settle down. For the good of the family." I looked at all of them, my parents, who had stolen from me without a second thought, and Rebecca, who had laughed at my dreams. And for the first time, I wasn't the quiet, overlooked girl at the table. I was the one holding all the power. I leaned back in my chair, smiled faintly, and said, Funny how now you suddenly see me. But I'm not your backup plan. Not anymore. The silence after my words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. My mom's lips parted, like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. My dad looked down at the phone, still glowing on the table, then back at me, his face pale. Rebecca crossed her arms and scoffed, trying to recover her confidence. You're really going to sit there and act like you're better than us just because you got lucky online? I laughed quietly, shaking my head. This wasn't luck, Rebecca. This was work. Work you all said I wasn't capable of. Work you tried to erase when you took everything from me. But I built it back. I built it bigger. My mom reached across the table, her hand hovering near mine. Haley, we never meant to hurt you. We thought you'd understand. We thought family was more important. I pulled my hand back before she could touch me. My voice was steady, sharper than I'd ever heard it before. You didn't think about family. You thought about Rebecca. You always do. And you proved exactly where I stand in this house when you chose her wedding over my future. My dad's voice cracked, something I wasn't used to hearing. We made a mistake. But you can fix this now. Help us, you're doing so well. You could save us. That word save made me laugh again, bitter and tired. You want me to save you after you destroyed me? No, I'm not your safety net. I'm not your second choice. I will never be your backup plan again. Rebecca rolled her eyes, trying to regain control. God, Haley, you're being so dramatic. You can't seriously think you're just going to cut us off. We're your family. I stood up from the table, my chair scraping against the floor. For once, all of their eyes were on me. And for once, I didn't feel small under their stares. I felt free. I looked right at Rebecca. You're right. You're my family. But family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't laugh at someone's dreams. Family doesn't make you feel worthless every single day. So if this is what family means, I don't need it. The room went quiet again. The only sound the faint clinking of Rebecca's fork against her plate as she tried to act unbothered. My mom whispered my name, her voice breaking, but I didn't stop. I grabbed my bag, slid my phone back into my pocket, and walked toward the door. Before I stepped out, I turned back one last time. You'll never have to worry about me again. But don't ever expect me to rescue you. Not now, not ever. And then I left. I walked away from that table, away from the weight of always being second best. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was truly stepping into my own future. A future that was mine, built by me, and no one could ever take it away again. Asterisk, asterisk, if you connected with my story, don't forget to share, and subscribe so you won't miss more stories of revenge, drama, and life lessons. And I'd love to hear from you. Share your own experiences in the comments, because your stories matter here too.